Welcome back to my channel Pocket Change Coin. First, we have a fantastic story to share with you, one that's all about hidden treasures, right in your pocket change. You're probably familiar with the 1-cent coin, or the penny, but today we're going to take a deep dive into a specific year of the United States 1-cent coin, 1971D. You might have seen one of these coins before, or maybe you have one sitting in your drawer without realizing it could be worth a small fortune. But wait until you hear what makes the 1971D penny special and just how much it could be worth. The year 1971 might seem like it was just another regular year in American history. The US was still deep in the midst of the post-Vietnam War era, and the country was dealing with inflation and a major shift in its political and cultural landscape. But in the world of coins, something significant happened that would set the stage for the future of American currency, something that would make certain coins from this year incredibly valuable. The 1971 penny, made by the Denver Mint, is particularly interesting because it was the first year of a new type of minting technology. The U.S. Mint was introducing a new obverse die, featuring a new type of engraving. The 1971 penny is often thought of as the start of the transition to a more modernized, intricate design process that would come to define later pennies. So, what's the catch? Why should we care about a 1971D penny when we know the Mint produced millions of them? Well, there are a few key factors that make this seemingly ordinary coin a hidden gem for collectors, and there's one detail that can make the value skyrocket. Let's start with condition. As we've mentioned in past videos, the condition of a coin is crucial in determining its value. And while many of the 1971D pennies have circulated for decades and show the usual signs of wear and tear, scratches, dings, discoloration, there are a select few that were never used in circulation. These uncirculated coins are extremely valuable and often the subject of heated bidding wars at auctions. If you find a 1971D penny that's been carefully preserved and protected from the ravages of time, then you're sitting on a potential treasure, but that's not all. There's also the possibility that the 1971D penny you have is a rare minting error, and this is where things get really exciting. Sometimes, the minting process doesn't go perfectly, and this results in coins that are produced with defects, making them stand out. Some 1971D pennies were struck with misaligned dies, where the image and design are off-center, giving them a unique appearance. These types of minting errors are incredibly desirable to collectors because they are so rare. The value of an off-center 1971D penny can be significantly higher than the typical coin. Additionally, there are certain double die errors that can occur, where the coin's design features, like the date, lettering, or even Lincoln's portrait, appear doubled due to a flaw during the striking process. These double die pennies are extremely valuable, and finding one can be like striking gold. But wait, let's go back to the basics for a second. How much could the 1971D penny be worth? After all, it was a coin used by millions of people across the country in everyday transactions. So, is it really worth all this attention? Here's where things get interesting. While the vast majority of 1971D pennies are worth only a single cent, those that are in pristine, uncirculated condition or that have rare minting errors can fetch an incredible price. And I'm talking about serious money. Imagine finding a 1971D penny that has been stored in perfect condition, with no wear or discoloration. Or perhaps you have one with a rare minting mistake, an off-center strike, a double die, or another flaw that makes it unique. Now, instead of a 1-cent coin, you're holding something that could be worth an astounding $111,000. That's right, $111,000 for a single penny. You're probably wondering how on earth a penny could be worth so much. But in the world of rare coins, that's not out of the ordinary. Collectors are constantly searching for these types of coins, and when one with the right attributes comes along, whether it's in near-perfect condition or has a rare error, it can be auctioned off for an unbelievable amount of money. So, what should you do if you have a 1971D penny in your collection? Well, the first thing to do is check its condition. Look at the surfaces carefully. Does it still have a nice shine? Are there any obvious signs of wear or damage? If it looks like it was just minted yesterday and doesn't have the usual wear you would expect from a coin in circulation, you might have found a rare gem. Next, take a closer look for any errors. Does the design look off-center? Are there signs of doubling in the lettering or the year? If you find any of these characteristics, it's a good idea to have the coin professionally graded by a trusted service like the PCGS or NGC. These experts will evaluate the coin's condition and rarity, and they'll assign it a grade that will help determine its value. The bottom line is this: if you happen to come across a 1971 D penny that's in excellent condition or has a rare error, you could be holding something worth far more than a single cent. In fact, it could be worth $111,000. That's right, $111,000 for a single penny. Now that you know how much potential is hiding in those pennies you have lying around, be sure to take a closer look at your collection. You never know when you might come across a hidden treasure that could be worth a small fortune. Second rare coin, we're diving into a piece of American history that is often overlooked, the 1966 U.S. 1-cent coin, also known as the 1966 penny. But hold on, because this is no ordinary penny. By the end of this video, you'll see why this coin might be worth way more than its 1-cent face value, and how it could even make you a small fortune if you happen to have one. Let's set the scene and go back to 1966. The United States was experiencing a time of change. The 1960s were marked by cultural shifts, political upheaval, and economic challenges. But in the world of coinage, 1966 was also significant for another reason. The U.S. Mint was in the midst of producing coins during a period of transition. After years of using silver in most of its coins, including quarters and dimes, the government had decided to stop using silver for most denominations due to the rising price of the precious metal. As a result, the 1-cent coin made from 1966 and onward was no longer composed of the same metal as its predecessors. While pennies had originally been made with copper, this was the year that the U.S. Mint started experimenting with different alloys to replace copper in some coins. This shift didn't just impact the composition of the coin, but it also made certain years of the 1-cent coin incredibly valuable to collectors. So, what makes the 1966 1-cent coin so special? Let's dig deeper into the story. For starters, the 1966 penny has a fascinating history in its own right. It was produced in large quantities, with billions of these pennies circulating the United States in the years following its release. But here's the catch: not all 1966 pennies were made equally. In fact, there was a rare set of circumstances that led to a minting error on some of the 1966 1-cent coins. This error, though subtle, makes the coin incredibly desirable to collectors, and valuable to anyone lucky enough to have one. The main reason collectors are hunting for the 1966 penny is due to its mintage errors. You see, during this time, there was some confusion in the U.S. Mint as they were switching to new coin compositions and refining their minting processes. This led to certain mistakes, and some 1966 pennies were struck with a double die error, an error where the design appears twice on the coin, making the letters and numbers appear blurry or doubled. This is a huge find for collectors because double die errors are rare, and they can significantly increase the coin's value, but that's not all. There is another important reason why the 1966 penny can be worth so much: its condition. Like all coins, the value of a 1966 penny is significantly impacted by its grade. While many of these pennies are worn and heavily circulated, if you happen to find one that's in mint state, meaning it was never used in circulation, or it's been carefully preserved, you're sitting on a valuable piece of history. When it comes to coin collecting, the more pristine the condition, the more valuable the coin becomes. For instance, a 1966 penny in mint condition can fetch far more than its face value, even without any errors. However, if you have a coin that is both in perfect condition and contains an error, then you could be looking at a truly priceless piece of American numismatic history. Now, here's the moment you've been waiting for: how much is the 1966 1-cent coin worth, really? Well, the truth is, depending on its condition and whether or not it has a minting error, it could be worth thousands of dollars. But there's one particular 1966 penny that really stands out from the crowd, one that sold for an absolutely jaw-dropping amount. In recent years, a pristine 1966 penny with a double die error was sold at auction for an incredible $145,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $145,000 for a single penny. That's the kind of money that turns a simple coin collector's hobby into a potentially life-changing investment. So, how do you know if your 1966 penny might be worth this kind of money? First, start by inspecting it closely. Look for any signs of double die errors, especially around the lettering, such as the "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" inscriptions. If the lettering looks like it's been struck twice, then you might just have an error coin on your hands. Next, check the condition of the coin. Is it in nearly perfect condition, with sharp details and no noticeable wear? If so, it's definitely worth getting it professionally graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. These experts will evaluate the coin, give it a grade, and provide an official certificate of authenticity. The higher the grade, the higher the potential value. Remember, the rarity and unique characteristics of a coin, whether it's in mint condition or has an error, are what make it stand out in the eyes of collectors and investors. And a 1966 penny with the right combination of qualities could be worth more than you ever imagined. To wrap things up, the 1966 1-cent coin may seem like just another penny at first glance, but it's actually a hidden gem in the world of coin collecting. If you find one in exceptional condition, or even better, one that has a rare minting error, you could be looking at a coin worth a staggering $145,000. So, the next time you come across a 1966 penny, take a moment to inspect it closely. Who knows? You might be holding a piece of history, and a potential fortune, in your hands. Third expensive coin, we have something truly extraordinary to talk about, a coin that, at first glance, might seem like just another penny from the past. But hold on a second, this one could be worth much more than you think. That's right, we're talking about the 1961 US 1-cent coin. You might be wondering, how can a simple penny from 1961 possibly be worth a small fortune? Well, stick with us, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this particular penny might just be hiding a treasure worth a whopping $130,000. Let's take a journey back in time to 1961. The United States was in the midst of some fascinating changes. The 1960s were a period of transformation, culturally, politically, and even economically. The Cold War was in full swing, and the United States was also moving towards a space race with the Soviet Union, eventually landing on the moon just a few years later. But, on a much smaller scale, the US Mint was busy making changes of its own, including the production of a very specific penny, the 1961 1-cent coin. At first glance, the 1961 penny might seem like any other regular coin. But the key to its value lies in something far less obvious than its design or year of production. You see, 1961 was a year where the United States Mint was undergoing some minor shifts in its production processes. Though it may not have seemed significant at the time, those small adjustments would eventually lead to a rare and valuable discovery that coin collectors are actively hunting for today. The 1961 penny was struck at the Denver Mint, and what makes this particular coin special is not its historical context, but rather the rarity and condition of certain specimens. Like many coins from this era, the 1961 penny was mass-produced, with billions of them circulating across the country. But as time passed, many of these coins suffered from the usual wear and tear of everyday use, leaving them with scratches, dents, and fading details. However, not all of them met this fate. A few of these pennies have survived in remarkable condition, pristine and untouched by time. Now, let's talk about what truly sets the 1961 penny apart from the rest. What collectors are looking for in these pennies is a specific type of error, a rare minting flaw that makes these coins incredibly valuable. The key to finding this elusive treasure lies in a double die error, which occurs when the coin is struck with a misalignment of the dies during the minting process. This leads to a doubling effect on the design, where the details, particularly the date and lettering, appear to be duplicated. If you have a 1961 penny with this error, you're holding something very special. Double die pennies are some of the most sought-after coins in the world, and they are often worth hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars. For collectors, these coins are like diamonds in the rough, and finding one is akin to striking gold. But what if your 1961 penny isn't an error coin? Don't worry, there's still hope. Even a perfectly preserved, uncirculated 1961 penny can be worth significantly more than its 1 cent face value. When coins are kept in pristine condition, without any signs of wear, scratches, or discoloration, they become highly valuable to collectors who specialize in numismatic treasures. These coins are graded based on their condition, and the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. So, how much could you be looking at if you've got a well-preserved 1961 penny, or even better, one with a minting error? Prepare yourself, because the potential is astronomical. As mentioned earlier, $130,000 is the top value we're talking about for a rare, error-free 1961 penny or one with a significant minting flaw. $130,000. Can you believe it? A single penny, originally worth just 1 cent, could fetch such an incredible price at auction. Now, let's be realistic. The chances of finding a 1961 penny in perfect condition or with a double die error may seem slim. After all, the 1960s were a time of massive coin circulation, and most pennies from that era were used in everyday transactions, which means they likely suffered significant wear over time. However, that doesn't mean you should give up hope. Many coin collectors have found these gems tucked away in old coin jars, family heirlooms, and even among pocket change, so don't underestimate the power of a thorough search. If you happen to find a 1961 penny in good condition or with a minting error, the first thing you should do is carefully examine the coin. Look for any signs of doubling on the date or lettering. These are telltale signs of a double die error. Then, make sure to examine the coin's surface for any visible signs of wear. If the coin is well preserved, it could be worth sending it to a professional grading service, like PCGS or NGC, to determine its value. These services will evaluate the coin's authenticity, condition, and rarity, and provide you with an official grade that will help establish its worth. So, let's recap. The 1961 1-cent coin may seem like an ordinary penny, but for collectors, it's a potential treasure. Whether you're lucky enough to have one with a double die error or you've simply found one in mint condition, it could be worth a small fortune, $130,000, to be exact. If you've got a 1961 penny in your collection, now is the time to take a closer look. It could be your ticket to a big payday, and who knows? You might just be holding onto one of the most valuable pennies in American history. Specially, we have something truly special for you. If you're a fan of rare coins, you're going to want to stick around because we're talking about the 1982 US 1-cent coin, often overlooked, but potentially worth a small fortune. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this particular penny could be worth far more than its face value. Let's rewind to 1982. It was a year that saw some big changes in the United States. The country was experiencing the effects of inflation and the economic shifts of the early 80s. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was grappling with rising copper prices. The solution? A major change in the composition of the penny. Prior to 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper, but that year, the Mint switched the penny's composition to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This shift in materials was essential to help keep the production of pennies affordable and manageable, but here's where it gets interesting. While the U.S. Mint made this transition throughout 1982, they didn't do it all at once. The first few months of the year saw pennies minted in the old copper composition, while the later months were struck with the new copper-plated zinc composition. The key here is that the 1982 penny, minted at the Denver Mint, could be one of the last pennies struck with the original copper composition. And if you happen to come across one of these, you're holding onto a coin that has the potential to be worth far more than its original 1-cent value. So why is the 1982 penny worth so much? Well, the value of the 1982 penny comes down to two important factors: its composition and its rarity. The first part is easy to understand. The copper pennies from 1982 are highly sought after by collectors because they were only produced for a short time. The transition period when the Mint moved from copper to zinc was brief, and once the switch was made, the copper pennies essentially stopped being produced. As a result, these coins are incredibly rare, and finding one in great condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. Now, let's talk about the condition of the coin. As we know, many pennies circulate in our daily lives, and the 1982 penny is no exception. Over time, most of them get worn down, scuffed, or damaged. But here's the exciting part: if you happen to find a well-preserved 1982 penny, especially one that hasn't been exposed to heavy circulation, you could be holding onto a true treasure. In fact, the rarer and more pristine the coin, the higher its value. Collectors are always on the lookout for coins that have remained in mint condition, as these coins can be worth exponentially more, but that's not all. There's another factor that makes the 1982 penny even more desirable: the potential for errors. Minting errors can happen at any time during the coin production process, and sometimes, these mistakes can make a coin significantly more valuable. Some 1982 pennies were struck with unique errors, such as double dies, off-center strikes, or misaligned dies. These errors are highly prized by collectors because they are one of a kind, and in some cases, can dramatically increase the value of a coin. For example, imagine finding a 1982 penny that was struck with a double die error. This occurs when the coin is struck twice, causing the design to appear doubled, particularly noticeable around the date and lettering. Double die pennies are some of the most highly coveted error coins because they are so rare. If you manage to find one of these 1982 pennies, you could be looking at a very significant financial reward. Now, we're sure you're wondering, how much is my 1982 penny actually worth? Well, if you've got a high-quality 1982 penny, or even better, one with a rare minting error, it could be worth a small fortune. In fact, depending on the condition and the error, a single 1982 penny could be valued at an astonishing $120,000. That's right, $120,000 for just one coin. Who would have thought that a simple penny, something most of us pass by every day, could hold such immense value? So, how do you determine if your 1982 penny is one of these rare gems? First, check the composition. You can tell if your penny is made of copper or zinc by weighing it. The copper pennies from 1982 will weigh about 3.11 grams, while the zinc pennies weigh only 2.5 grams. If you've got one of the copper versions, you're already on the right track. Next, carefully inspect the coin for any minting errors, like doubling or misalignment. And finally, look at its overall condition. If your penny is in exceptional shape, it could be worth far more than you think. If you find that you've got a potentially valuable 1982 penny, the next step is to get it professionally graded. Trusted services like PCGS or NGC can evaluate the authenticity and condition of the coin, giving you an official grade and confirming its value. A coin with a high grade and error could be worth far more than a lower graded coin, so it's important to get a professional evaluation. To sum it all up, the 1982 US 1-cent coin might look like an ordinary penny, but it's anything but ordinary. Between its unique composition, its rarity, and the possibility of minting errors, this penny has the potential to be a serious collector's item, and it could fetch an incredible price if you happen to have one in your collection. $120,000. That's the kind of value you could be holding onto if you've got one of these rare pennies in great condition, or with an exciting error. Last unique coin, we've got something really special for you, something that might just be sitting in your coin jar or old family collection without you even knowing its true value. We're talking about the 1967 US 1-cent coin. At first glance, this might seem like just another penny from the past, but trust me, this particular coin could be worth far more than you think. By the end of this video, you'll see why this 1967 penny could be worth $170,000. Let's step back in time to 1967. The US was in the middle of the 1960s, a decade full of cultural shifts, civil rights movements, and major political events. The country was coming off the heels of President Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society programs and moving toward the tumultuous years of the Vietnam War. On a more mundane level, the U.S. Mint was busy producing coins that would circulate across the country, including the familiar 1-cent coin we're talking about today. So, why is this 1967 penny so valuable? Well, it all starts with a change in the coin's production. The The 1967 penny was struck during an era when the U.S. Mint was facing a significant challenge. The price of copper was rising, and this was affecting the cost of producing pennies. You see, pennies up until that point were made primarily of copper, but as metal prices went up, the mint began experimenting with different compositions to cut costs. This led to a period where certain pennies were made using a mix of copper and other materials, which brings us to the 1967 1-cent coin. What makes the 1967 penny different from other coins from the same era is its composition and the possibility of certain errors. While most 1967 pennies were struck with the usual copper plating over a zinc core, a few coins slipped through the cracks with unusual characteristics that set them apart from the rest. If you've got one of these rare pieces, you could be holding a coin that's worth much more than its original 1-cent value. But here's the kicker: some 1967 pennies are known to have minting errors that make them even more valuable. Minting errors, like double die errors, off-center strikes, and die cracks, happen when something goes wrong during the coin's production. These errors can result in some very unique and highly desirable coins for collectors. For example, a double die error occurs when the coin is struck more than once, causing the design to appear doubled or misaligned. These errors are some of the most sought after in the numismatic world because they're rare and they make the coin unique. What's really exciting is that the 1967 penny, like many pennies from that period, had the potential to be struck with some of these misaligned dies or double die errors, which means that if you have one of these mistakes in your collection, you could be sitting on a very valuable piece of history. These errors make the coins unique and much rarer than the millions of standard-issue 1967 pennies that were produced, but even if you don't have a minting error on your hands, don't give up hope just yet. The condition of the coin also plays a huge role in its value. Like all coins, pennies from 1967 were made in large numbers, but over the years, most of them have been used, tossed around, and damaged. Finding one in near-perfect or uncirculated condition is rare, but it's this level of preservation that can really boost its worth. Collectors are always on the lookout for well-preserved coins that haven't been damaged by time or circulation. If you happen to have a 1967 penny in mint condition, it could be worth far more than you would expect. Now, we know you're eager to find out just how much this 1967 penny could be worth, so let's get to the good stuff. A well-preserved 1967 penny, especially one with a minting error or a rare feature, could fetch a mind-blowing price at auction. How much, you ask? Well, if you have one of these rare coins, you could be looking at a value of $170,000. Yes, you heard that right, $170,000. A single penny, once worth just 1 cent, could be worth that much if it's a rare find in excellent condition or with a minting error. Now, we can imagine you're probably looking through your collection right now, wondering if you have one of these rare 1967 pennies. So, how do you figure it out? First, check the composition. You can do this by weighing the coin. Most 1967 pennies were made with a copper-plated zinc composition, but if you find one that weighs more, like a solid copper penny, you've got a rare find on your hands. Next, examine the design closely. Look for any signs of doubling or misalignment. The date and the lettering on the coin are the first places to look. If there's any sign of a double die error, where the date or letters appear to be duplicated, you may have stumbled upon something special. Once you've identified your coin, the next step is to get it professionally graded. Services like PCGS or NGC can help determine the coin's authenticity and provide a grade based on its condition. Coins that are graded higher will naturally be worth more, so getting it professionally graded is a smart move if you believe you have a rare specimen. To sum it all up, the 1967 US 1-cent coin might look like just another penny to most people, but for collectors, it's a hidden treasure. Whether you've got a penny with a minting error or a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, this little penny could be worth a staggering $170,000. Imagine holding onto a coin that's worth that much. Pretty incredible, right? Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins, be sure to give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. You never know what kind of treasure we'll uncover next. Happy hunting, and good luck finding your own rare coins.